everybody, this is D Hunter, bringing another action figure review. Today, we're going to look at the Hasbro G.I. Classified 6-inch scale Sgt Slaughter. This is a really cool release. I don't know if they were ever going to make one of these guys, but they sure did. You can see on the front here, we've got images of the figure, him from the cartoon, him from the comics. G.I. Classified Sgt Slaughter by Hasbro. One side, we got some Joe insignia. He's the 53rd figure in the G.I. Classified line. On the back, here's the figure, all his accessories, different display options. At the bottom, got a bunch of credits, and there is a barcode, in case that helps anybody. So, no further ado, let's open him up. Alright, now that we got this figure out of the package, here he is with all his accessories laid out, and he comes with quite a bit of cool stuff. He comes with a rifle, with a removable magazine and front scope piece, 6 alternate hands, totaling 8 interchangeable hands, an action figure of himself, the old school version of Sgt Slaughter. Very cool. He has his signature hat, glasses, whistle around his neck, and a little whip thing. But before we take a look at those, let's talk about and check out the actual figure. So this is Sgt Slaughter from the G.I. Joe world. Sgt Slaughter is a really interesting character. He has that typical drill sergeant look to him, and he really seems to be based off the old WWF wrestler, Sgt Slaughter. To add to that, they actually had the wrestler voice him in the G.I. Joe cartoon, at least if I recall correctly. Everyone needs a drill sergeant in your military group of Joes. So let's go ahead and take a look at him. Start with his head here. Definitely looks like Sgt Slaughter the wrestler. This toy sure appears to be based off him. I wonder if they had to pay for likeness rights, or if there was a loophole, because that's just simply how the character looked. His hair, part to the side. He's got that mustache, that sort of tough look to him. He's got that black sort of tank top, wife beater looking thing. One thing I don't like is his large shoulder muscles. They just look bad. I know it's partly because of the butterfly joint there, but just that line underneath, that sculpting line, frankly, it looks awful. Beyond that, the figure looks great. Bicep cut, double jointed elbows. He's got a couple little sort of bracelet things on. Belt, camo pants, double jointed knees, military boots. It all looks really good, except for the shoulders. And just a closer look at his face and head sculpt. And then, here's the figure broken down as far as he can go, with all of his removable parts detached. Now let's check out his accessories, and let's start off with his hands. Here are his hands. He has a total of 8 of them, 4 left hands and 4 right hands. Here he is with his first pair of hands. These are his fists. Then, his next pair of hands. These are a couple of pointing hands. Here's his third pair of hands. These are some open hands. I would describe them as grabbing hands, not exactly gripping hands. And here's his last pair of hands. These are some gripping hands. These are going to hold his weapons. Now let's get this guy looking like Sgt Slaughter. Let's look at his hat, glasses, and whistle. Whistle's pretty cool. Wraps around his neck. Gold whistle at the bottom there. Glasses. They look fine. Nothing spectacular, but nothing disappointing about them. Then his hat here. Old school sheriff looking hat. Drill sergeant. Here's Sgt Slaughter without his hat, glasses, and whistle. Here he is with the whistle attached. Then his signature sunglasses. And most importantly, to complete his look, here he is with his hat. Now this screams Sgt Slaughter to me. Now let's look at his little drill sergeant or instructor whip thing. Little whip part at the top, brown pole, little area to grip here, and a golden base. Here's Sgt Slaughter holding this whip thing pointed toward himself, and here he is getting ready to whip someone who wouldn't drop down and give him 50. Now let's look at his gun. It's got a removable magazine and front scope. Gun itself looks pretty good. It's got a little bit of brown on the handle, as well as the bottom here. Not a bad looking rifle. And here's the rifle. with both the scope and the magazine attached. Here's Sgt Slaughter holding his weapon. He can hold it with either one hand or with two. Now let's look at the little action figure of himself. The thing is really cool, old school G.I. Joe packaging. You can see Sgt Slaughter. He's got his signature camo pants, black tank top, drill sergeant hat. It's in sort of a protective plastic cover. I'm just not willing to take it out of there for now. Very cool. Here's Sgt Slaughter holding the figure of himself. Really, really cool accessory. Definitely my favorite of the lot. Now that we've taken a pretty good look at both the figure and its accessories, now let's check out his height. From bottom to the top of his head, with his hat on, standing at about 7.0 inches tall. Take the hat off, standing at about 6.75 inches tall, which can translate to about 17 centimeters. Now let's check out his articulation. Starting with his head here. Of course, it can rotate from side to side. Can look up about that far, down about that far. Can tilt his head just the tiniest bit, not much. Shoulders on a ball joint goes out a little bit more than 90 degrees, up, down, around, all that good stuff. He's got a butterfly joint between shoulder and chest area, increasing the range of motion. Bicep cut below that. Double jointed elbows. His wrist can rotate, and it's going to be hinged as well. He's got traditional ab crunch here. Waist swivel, the ball joint, rotate, and forward and back. Legs, complete as splits. Ball joints. They have the drop down hips. You sort of push them back up in there. They go forward, about that far. Back, not much. He's got a thigh cut. Double jointed knees. Boot cut. His ankles, forward and back. Tilt rock. No traditional rotation, that's what the boot cut's for. Here's Sgt Slaughter, being the drill sergeant that he is, making a bunch of the Joes do push-ups. Now let's check him out next to some of their action figures, starting off with some other Sgt Slaughter figures. Here's this G.I. Joe Sgt Slaughter with 3 different wrestling Sgt Slaughter figures that I have. They look a little different without the hat and the glasses, but I'd have to really dig in deep to find those. Here he is, next to several different early Joe figures. Then, next to his more recently released Joe figures. Here are all of my different Hasbro G.I. Joe figures. On the Joe side of things, I believe I have every single one and every single variation. There are a couple of new ones that have been starting to drop out. I don't have all the newest ones yet, but I will get them. Drop me a line in the comments below if you see anything that I am missing on the Joe side. It's possible either I just missed the figure and forgot to put them up here, or there's something I'm missing that I'm not aware of. The only G.I. Joe figures I'm missing for the line as a whole is the light blue Cobra Commander, I think he's called Regal Cobra Commander, and the Target exclusive Viper. Pretty disappointed. Those guys prevent my collection from being 100% complete. And here he is, next to some recent release Cobra figures. Now let's check him out, next to some action figures from different various companies, to see how he fits in, both scale and style-wise, in case you want to know which lines you can mix him with. Since he's a Hasbro figure, they're typically the 6-inch scale. I'm going to start off my comparisons with some of the smaller action figure lines I collect, and work my way larger. But first, let's check him out with some of his Hasbro brothers. Here he is, next to some Hasbro Marvel Legends. Then, next to some Hasbro Victory Royale Fortnite figures. And now, next to some Jazzwares Fortnite figures. Here's Sgt Slaughter, next to some SH Figure Arts action figures. Here he is, next to a roll of toilet paper. And yes, it's the soft kind. And here he is, with some Mafex figures. Then, next to some Mattel, DC Universe Classics, and Multiverse figures. And here he is, next to some Mezco 112 collective figures. And now, with some Jazzwares AEW wrestlers. Then, with some Mattel wrestling figures. And here he is, next to some NECA figures. Then, standing next to some DC Direct and DC Collectibles figures. And now, next to some McFarlane toys. And here he is, next to some DST or Diamond Select toys. And finally, next to some Jakks Pacific wrestling figures. Overall, this is a really cool and really fun figure. Sculpt and paint job are excellent. Only thing I don't like are the shoulders. His accessories are phenomenal, the hat, the sunglasses, the whistle, and most importantly, his own action figure of himself. Such a good idea. Such a cool accessory for this guy. His articulation is everything you'd expect from a Hasbro G.I. Joe figure, and they're very well articulated. If I were to rate this figure, I'm really enjoying him a lot. I'm going to give him a solid 8 out of 10. Pretty high praise in my book. So this is D Hunter. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you liked the video, press like below. If you have anything you want to say with the video, add to the comment section. If you want to see additional action figure reviews from me, press subscribe. I do appreciate when you do that. Once again, this is D Hunter. Thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll talk to you guys real soon.